Back again to the Dark Souls trilogy, and once again I asked y'all to pick which run I should do, and y'all picked spears only. So this is me taking on the Dark Souls trilogy while only using spears. Also, make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more crazy runs like these, or just like seeing me suffer. I also recently created a second channel, so if you'd like to see the best moments and highlights from my streams, check out Arcane Light. With that said, let's get into the rules for this run. Rule number 1, spears only, which means I can only use spears to deal damage to enemies. Rule number 2, I cannot use magic weapon, lightning blade, dark blade, or any of those types of spells. I do this to make the run a bit harder. I normally would say I could use power within or deep protection, but this time I decided they were off limits too. Rule number 3, resins are allowed because it makes fighting some bosses a bit more interesting. Number 4, no summons, gotta do all the work on my own. Number 5, I must rank the top 3 best weapons in each game. Now, normally I would do all weapons, but there are a lot of spear weapons in the Dark Souls trilogy, and it would be hard to rank all of them efficiently. So I decided to just do the top 3 in each game. And lastly, rule number 6, I must beat all bosses. With the rules out of the way, let's get this run started. Starting off with the class pick, I went with the Knight for its well-balanced stats, but more importantly for its 14 in vitality so that I don't have to worry about investing points into it. After picking my class, I named my character Gilgamesh from Fate's Stay Knight. Now, I know he's an archer class, but with Ornstein's armor, Gilgamesh seemed most fitting. With my character made, I pick up my trusty new spear. The spear is a dex-based weapon. Its light attack, heavy attack, and two-handed attacks all do forward thrust attacks. Its roll attack, on the other hand, is an upward slash. The real unique thing about spear weapons is that when holding a shield up, you can still attack with the weapon, which makes taking out basic enemies a lot easier and safer. Back at the asylum, I met a well-worn traveler who helped me out of my cell, but I am Gilgamesh, so I can't have anybody know that. So I took him out because no one helps Gilgamesh. After making lemonade out of Lemon's remains, I plunge on down to the asylum demon and thrust him real good to the point he couldn't take it anymore. I then fly on over to Firelink Shrine, pick up some humanity so that I can become my majestic self again. Once done dappering up, I ran on over to the cemetery to get the wing spear. The wing spear is pretty much the same as the spear, but with higher base damage, and its roll attack is an overhead slam instead of an uppercut. With that said, I picked me up some souls so I can get my dex and strength to 15 to be able to wield the winged spear. I then dash on over to Undead Parish to get some gold pine resin because I am Gilgamesh and I must hoard all the gold. With gold in hand, I make it to Darkroot Basin where I can get the Grass Crest Shield, which will increase my stamina recovery. I then go to Darkroot Garden where a feeble plant thinks it can stop me, the almighty Gilgamesh, from moving forward. Like any plant could stop me. Nope, doesn't count. Death count stays at 0 because I am Gilgamesh. Ignoring that event that never happened, I killed the tree snake so that I could get the partisan. The unique aspect to the partisan to the other two spears is that its heavy attack is a horizontal sweep, which makes it versatile when dealing with multiple foes. While in Darkroot Gardens, I made sure to get the wolf ring to help with poise. I finally make it to Andre, who sells the pike. The pike is one of the longest spears in the game, and the unique thing about it is that its strength requirement is much higher than its dex requirement, meaning it's an Unga Bunga spear. Moveset wise, it's the same as the spear, but has a special running attack that allows you to charge forward, dealing damage. On top of that, its heavy attack is a short but strong thrust attack. With that said, my spear hunting is not done yet, which is why I'm at the Red Drake's location to farm souls, to the point of attaining 35,000. I used 20 of which to get the Crest of Artorias to open the magic rock door, so that I can teach the peasants around here about the science of gravity, and more importantly to join the cat cult, because we all know Gilgamesh is a cat person. Due to joining the cat cult, I can talk to Shiva, which will send him to Blighttown, allowing me to buy the demon spear off of him for 15,000 souls. The demon spear has innate lightning damage, which is very strong for early game, and on top of that, it has extremely good range, to the point of almost being on par with the pike. Its unique attack is its heavy attack, where the player winds up for a large lunging attack. The only downside to this weapon is that it cannot be buffed with resin or any magic weapon buff. On the subject of buffing, I use gold pine resin on my spear to show the Taurus demon a good time with my spear vibrator 9000. I then use the Taurus soul to purchase Titanite shards to upgrade my spear collection. Speaking of spears, there is a channeler nearby that can drop the channeler's trident, but with it having a 1% drop rate, I was not lucky enough to get it, and this channeler does not respond. So instead, I challenged Lotric to a duel. Being that I am Gilgamesh, I wouldn't do something as lowly as push him off a cliff. I must overwhelm my opponents with my raw nude powers, except for my hands, those stay covered up. My reward for besting this mighty foe is the Fap Ring. Once having the one ring to rule them all, I took on the gargoyles with the demon spear, and as y'all could already guess, it absolutely destroyed them. I wasn't joking when I said it makes the early game a lot easier. I then ring the bells to let everyone know their new ruler and king is here. After boasting for a bit, I use my 10k worth of souls to get my spears to +5 and then take on a Titanite demon. Now, I could have done this before the gargoyles fight to get my demon spear to +1 since it upgrades with demon Titanite, but I knew I didn't need it to beat the gargoyles. Before upgrading, I grabbed the Undead Solomon West Key, hitch a ride on the bird taxi to the Northern Undead Asylum to use the West Key to get the rusted iron ring for Blighttown, and lastly, while here, I took on the Stray Demon. I chose to use the Partisan here simply because I needed to use it at least once. Kind of the downside with so many weapons in one category, they kind of all mesh together with not much separating them. It makes me appreciate Bloodborne so much more with how unique each weapon is in that game, but with that said, I killed the Stray Demon with no issues. I then head back to Andre to finish upgrading the pike to +5 and get the Demon Spear to +1. With my leftover souls, I got my strength to 19 to make sure I could two-hand the pike. Which means it's time to fight a boss. But to get there, I break the laws of reality to pass through walls to fight the Capper Demon. How is this possible, you ask? Well, dear viewer, I am motherfucking Gilgamesh, that's how. With the pike's long range, I had no issues taking out the two dogs, leaving the Capper Demon open to some plunging and thrusting, earning me the Depths key, allowing me into the depths where I use the shield poke combo to make the hardest enemy in the game a walk in the park. I then get the large ember to take the shortcut nearby to get to the bottom, so that I could have a second chance at killing a channeler for a trident. And once again, I failed. Well, I move on to grab a large Titanite shard and pick a fight with a large gaping dragon. Before coming into this fight, I was poisoned and ran out of Estus, which means no healing for this fight, and on top of that, I never rested at the bonfire nearby. But you don't need any of that when you can just bait out the head slams to poke the dragon in the head until it dies. Which works out great since I can now just warp back to Firelink Shrine, where I get my dex to 25 and strength to 20. I had a bit of extra souls after that, so I got my wing spear to +6 and bought the weaponsmith box. I then head back to Blighttown, where I use the rusted iron ring to help grind gold leeches for large Titanite shards, so that I could get my wing spear to +10, making me ready to take on everybody's favorite DS1 boss, Quelaag. I still had one more gold pine resin from earlier, making Quelaag shake in excitement for the Wing Spear 69,000. On the off topic of vibrating, did y'all know that there are sponsored videos for massage toys? I was binging some Alex Myers recently, and in one of his most recent videos, he has a massage toy sponsor. Completely caught me off guard, and I had no clue that was even a thing on YouTube. Gave me a good laugh though, and figured I would share. Speaking of vibrating, I think Quelaag had enough and called it quits for the day. I then rang another giant bell to let my future servants know that I was coming so that they would open the doors for me. Being next to Ceaseless, I made sure to take him out as well. Using his souls and his sisters, I get my dex to 31 and strength to 24. Knowing that I'll need the Moonlight Butterfly soul, I go kill it before making my way to Anor Londo. I then head to Sin's Fortress to hunt down some Titanite demons, who has to have the worst hitboxes in Dark Souls 1. Like, how can I roll right when it lands a jump attack and I still get hit after the roll from behind it? Who at FromSoft thought this was a good idea? Bitching aside, I finish off the last of them to get my Demon Spear to +3, meaning it was time for the Iron Golem, and for those who do not know, the Iron Golem is weak to lightning, so it wasn't much of a fight. So if you've been having trouble with the early game in Dark Souls, go get yourself a Demon Spear. After that easy fight, my new servant hoists me into the air to show me my new kingdom that I will rule, and I will name it New Gilgamesh. Once landing in New Gilgamesh, I start working on increasing my intelligence, pick up some Demon Titanite in a chest nearby, find a wild Titanite demon in the castle that I make sure to take care of, and farm Silver Knights for their spears, which they have a 2% chance of dropping. The Silver Knight Spear is a divine weapon, which I forget about later on, but make sure you remember for a funny moment later. For attacks, everything is the same as the basic spear, except its heavy single arm attack is a horizontal attack, while its two-handed heavy attack is a forward thrust. After obtaining the spear, I hit up the giant blacksmith to buy some twinkling Titanite to get my new spear to +4, making me ready to take on the baddie duo that is Ornstein and Smough. With this being a spear-only run, I am forced to kill Smough first so that I can get Ornstein's soul. The thing I always forget about is how easy Smough is in Phase 1 and 2 to kill. Like, killing Smough in Phase 1 is so much easier than killing spammy Ornstein. So I guess it's just pick your poison. Have an easy first phase or second phase. In my current case, that means easy phase 1. I'm not too familiar with Ornstein's second phase since I always do Smough's second phase, but if you just stay on top of him and be careful of his lightning spear attack, he's pretty easy to get hits in. You just need to be on the lookout for his butt slam attack that I forgot about, which almost killed me, but fortunately, I just survived it, allowing me to finish off the shitty AI boss that is Ornstein. After that well-fought fight, I talked to Guinevere, ignoring her huge breasticles because my eyes were on the golden bowl that is the Lord Vessel. Before playing with my new bowl, I turned my +10 spear into the Dragon Slayer Spear. The Dragon Slaying Spear is a lightning-infused weapon that scales mostly with Dex and Faith. Its light attack is just a basic thrust, but its heavy attack shoots out a lightning projectile. But do be careful when using it. It doesn't take too many casts before it breaks. Right after making my Dragon Slayer Spear, I use the Partisan to make the Moonlight Butterfly Horn. The Moonlight Butterfly Horn is a spear that focuses on magic damage, has really good range, but that's about it. Does nothing special, just pokes and deals magic damage instead of physical. Was really hoping it would do something cool, but I guess that's too much to ask for. After all that weapon talk, I finally placed the Lord Vessel, giving me access to the best half of Dark Souls 1. But first, I need a bit of cash, so I went hunting in the woods for peasants, and ended up getting a wood grain ring in the process. I then used those peasant souls to get my new golden armor, putting me one step closer to my true Gilgamesh form. With Ornstein's armor being a bit heavy, I kill Havel for his ring so that I can wear the armor without heavy rolling, and I'm looking fine if I do say so myself. I might even take a page out of Pokemon's book and buy myself an engagement ring. Joking aside from sadly marrying my rich self, I complete the 3 tasks needed to access the DLC. Before all that, I made sure to get the covetous gold serpent ring to help with my item discovery, which I use at the Duke Archives to farm the channelers. Luckily, it didn't take too long to get the trident to drop. The channeler's trident is a physical dash magic spear. The thing that makes it different from the other spears is that its special ability can buff surrounding allies. My dumbass thought it was like Dark Souls 2 and it could just buff yourself. I will find out in not too long that is not the case. Before making myself look like a fool, I give 30 humanity to the White Lady so that I can access the secret passage, but first I need to kill the Fire Sage. I decided to go with the Dragon Slayer for this fight since I feared I could shoot the flaming turd from a distance. Come to find out, the projectile does not do that great of damage, but hey, I made it work and even got the kill with it even though it broke the spear in the process. With now having access to the Fire Sage bonfire, I can use the secret passage to farm a Titanite demon that respawns and drops 2 demon Titanites, allowing me to get my boss weapons to +5. Speaking of bosses, it's time for the Centipede Demon. I ended up going with the Moonlight Butterfly Horn because I don't know what other boss to use it on. It did great with its range, but it still seems weird. I can't cast spells or shoot a projectile like Moonlight Butterfly. I honestly don't know why a mage user would want to use this weapon over just casting spells or using a normal weapon with magic weapon, but hey, who am I to judge? With Centipede Demon out of the picture, I take out the Bed of Chaos, netting me 60,000 souls, which I use to get my intelligence to 25, making me happy dance in front of Artorias' grave. It was this fight with Sif that I realized the dance buff does not apply to the caster at all, which seems kind of bullshit, because when the channelers do it, they get a buff as well as their allies. probably why in Dark Souls 2 they fixed this, but still. The Trident overall felt good for this fight. With its range, it made it easy to get hits off on Sif's legs. Sadly, the damage though wasn't anything to brag about, and tragically made Sif have to suffer a bit before I could take her out. With Sif put to bed next to Artorias, I get the key to the seal so that I could get the very large ember, granting me access to the next rank of upgrades for my winged spear and pike. With that done, it was time to show off the winged spear 69,000 extra turbo edition to Seath the Scaleless. As usual, I just spun Seath in a circle, but near the end I got brave and decided to just bum rush his belly. It got a bit spicy with him getting his room-wide AoE off, but I committed to the gamble and kept thrusting like a Giga Chad Gilgamesh would do, granting me the first try because when you're Gilgamesh, you can't lose. After the fights, I level my faith to 18, head down into the catacombs to slap Pinwell around like a little bitch and take on his boss Nito, where for some reason I thought the Dragon Slayer's spear had the divine affinity. As y'all could guess, I found out the hard way. But you know the rules of Gilgamesh, death count stays at 0. Once back in the fights with the Silver Knight's spear, which has the divine damage, I was able to take out Nito's skeleton army, leaving him defenseless to my onslaught of attacks, just like the poor assassin pawn in Fate Stay Night 0. Poor dude got set up. With Nito out of the picture, I get my faith to 22, get kidnapped by a giant furry hand, and take on the Sanctuary Guardians with my huge ass pike. You know, every time I fight this damn cat and I use a resin on a weapon, I feel like it knows and just stays back shooting lightning at me because every time I buff my weapon with fire, he kept running away. I also forgot to put my chest piece on before the fight and I had to do some quick menuing to get it on. But finally, after a few minutes of running around, I was finally able to shove my flaming pike up the giant cat's ass. Damn it, PETA, it's not what you think. After shaking off the PETA feds, I put a mushroom to sleep for some shrooms and farmed the farmers nearby for the 4-prong plow, which has a 1% drop rate. The 4-prong plow is a farm tool for plowing, that if you miss with the two-handed charge attack, you will fall flat on your face, which I will find out in the worst way possible. But first, it's time to fight Artorias. For this fight, I went with the Dragon Slayer Spear to show Artorias I defeated an old ally of his. Mental warfare aside, I also used Elizabeth Mushrooms here to help with HP regeneration after getting hit, so that I could keep attacking. Except I was a bit overconfident with it and almost got killed because of it. Realizing I still had to play somewhat safe, I went back to just attacking him after he twirls or dashes. The Dragon Slayer Spear did good poise damage against him too, to the point that I could actually stop him from buffing with only 3 pokes, making this fight a lot easier than it normally is. With Artorias defeated, I level my faith to 26 and begin my boss rush with Manus, Father of the Abyss, who definitely didn't kill me on the first try. Y'all are just high from the second-hand shrooms. For Manus, I decided to use Demon Spear just to see how well it would do against a DLC boss. Damage overall could be better, but with how fast you can get pokes out, plus it having a bit larger hitbox width than some other spears, it really wasn't bad at all to get hits in. I actually came close to no hitting him until I slipped up near the end, getting nipped by his shotgun attack. I am not used to all these clothes weighing me down. Sadly, no hits, but at least it was a first try, and to celebrate, I put Dawn out of her misery like the gentleman king that I am. Up next is Calamite, and of course this was the best time to use the pitchfork, and not the Dragon Slayer Spear, because we all know pitchforks are better suited for dealing with dragons. So, during the song and dance of baiting out tail attacks and fire breath attacks, I found out you can fall if you miss with the heavy fork attack, which Calamite did not miss a beat to smack the shit out of me, but with me being the king of kings, I smacked him right back, proving all you need is a good farm tool to take out a dragon. After Calamite, I defeat Gwendolyn with 0 effort, and Priscilla, I kept accidentally pressing the heavy attack with the trident, forcing me to dance in front of Priscilla, who kindly blew me a kiss, which I did not consent to, so she had to go. Which just leaves the 4 kings, who pulled a damn Caesar on me and backstabbed me to death. I mean, knocked me out. Definitely didn't die, death count stays at 0. For the kings, I went with the Dragon Slayer's Spear for the lightning damage, thinking it would make the fight a breeze, but I found the damage was a bit low. In hindsight, probably better to go with the pike or winged spear since they could be buffed, which would have allowed them to do more damage, but I made the Dragon Slayer Spear work. With the kings taken care of, I level up for the last time to level 79 and place the Lord Souls into the Golden Bowl for me to take on my final foe before I can truly be king of these lands. So of course I would do like any political figure and use any means possible to win, like parrying Gwen to death. But that wasn't the easiest this time around with him not looping. To my amazement, I was actually able to save it each time he smacked me to stay in the fight to actually win on my first try, bringing Dark Souls 1 Spears Only to an end. The total runtime was 11 hours and 13 minutes, with 0 deaths. Definitely didn't die 17 times. No siree. Alright, let's move on to the top 3 spear weapons in Dark Souls 1. Coming in third place is the Demon Spear. With how strong the weapon is early game, it has to be in the top 3. Yeah, it might lose some DPS in the later half in the game, but still holds up until the end, making it a great weapon overall. In second place is the Dragon Slayer Spear. As iconic as the spear is due to Ornstein, it just falls short of being in first place due to the fact it cannot be buffed. This greatly reduces its damage potential, but still a versatile weapon with it being able to shoot a projectile. Coming in first place and is the best spear in Dark Souls 1 is the Pike. Now, the Wing Spear could be here as well, but with the Pike's range, I had to put it over the Wing Spear. The Pike has good damage, good range, and most of all, it can be buffed for some serious damage. No shocker to no one that the Unga Bunga weapon won. Before jumping into Dark Souls 2, let's jump into today's sponsor, Wand. Wand is an assistance or guide tool for single-player games. For example, as someone who does challenge runs, I sometimes need to test things out beforehand. Like in my up-and-coming Neo 2 run where I tried to beat the game with secondary weapons only. For this run, I needed to test out a specific special effect that has a very low drop rate early on in the game and just couldn't get any gear to drop with it, even after a few painstaking hours of trying. So I open up Wand using the desktop app overlay by pressing Alt plus W. I then go down to the stats section and turn on max drop rate and item rarity. You see, it's very quick and easy to use. With some help from Wand, I was finally able to take out an enemy and get the drop I needed for my testing. During the testing, I was having so much fun seeing what else I could do with it that I noticed I could turn on Show Kodama's on mini-map, which is great for me since I constantly pass these guys up and I usually need them for their blessing effects. Now, Wand doesn't just have Neo 2, it has the entire Dark Souls trilogy and Elden Ring too. Wand supports up to over 3,500 games, so any game you need help with, they got you covered. They even have Clair Obscure Expedition 33, which is my personal choice for Game of the Year, and they have an entire interactive map section to use for it. I can honestly say I wish I had this when I was trying to get all the achievements in the game. It would have made finding all the music records and journals a lot easier. So if you too would like to check out Wand, you can get it for free using my link, wand.gg-arcane, which can be found in the description and pinned comment down below. Wand is offering 25% off their annual Pro subscription currently. This is the lowest price they offer all year and it's the best time to unlock the full Wand experience. So make sure to use the promo code WANDBF25 to get that 25% off. And with that said, Wand and I want to thank y'all for your time. And with that, let's jump into Dark Souls 2. Starting off, I named my character Diarmid after the dual-wielding spear wielder from Fate Stay Night 0. For my class, I go with the Knight because it's fitting for my character, and for the same reason as Dark Souls 1, it has a pretty high base health, so I don't have to worry about leveling it. Alright, we need to pause real quick. So before starting this run, I had assumed that all DS2 spear weapons were listed under spears in the wiki, but come to find out, DS2 has a lance section. In the DS1 and 3 wikis, they have them all in the spear category, so I thought 2 was going to be the same way, so I did not use any of the lance weapons on this run. I'll make sure for the future Dex only run to use the lance weapons over the spears to showcase them. With that PSA out of the way, let's get on with the run. Right out the gates, I go to Hyde's Tower to use the ultimate spear technique, Gravity. Let's try that one more time. The ultimate spear technique, Gravity, because nothing will thrust you as good as gravity will, and trust me, I know firsthand. After Dragon Rider and I were both being done thrusted to death, I get my dex to 17 and strength to 12. I then head to the Forest of Fallen Giants to buy the blacksmith key off the old hag merchant. With the key, I can open the blacksmith's shop, pop a Dragon Rider soul so that I can buy the spear. The spear in Dark Souls 2 pretty much has the exact same moveset as the Partisan from Dark Souls 1, except except for its follow-up heavy attack is a thrust instead of another horizontal swing. With now having a viable weapon, I go take out a female Patches so that she doesn't fall in love with me due to her seeing my magical love spot. I'm not joking, that's part of the Aramid's lore that he was cursed with a love spot and any woman that gazes upon it falls in love with him. So I don't need no crazy female Patches coming after me. With the souls I gathered from female Patches, I get my spear to +3. I then go back to the Forest of Giants to get some aromatic ooze and kill Pate, aka Patches, for his spear. Pate's spear is similar to the Dark Souls 1's pike, with the caveat its attacks are a bit slower and uses Twinkling Titanite to be upgraded, but it still has the running charge attack. Pate's spear has a very high dex requirement, so for the time being, I'll be using the spear, as you can see with me poking the last giant's legs, and with using some magic ooze, it wasn't hard at all to knock him down. With the souls I earned from the fights, I buy the Fragrant Branch of Yore to free Rosa from her stone slumber so that I can have access to the Shaded Woods, where I can get the Calanthu Ring +1, and while being in the area, I gave the Scorpion Dude a valuable lesson in not dropping the soap for me to get the second Dragon Ring. With now having half of the Affinity Stones, I was ready for the Pursuer, who must be related to Seath because she too likes to be twirled around while being poked. Except I can actually use Aromatic Ooze here to help deal more damage to make the fight go a bit faster. After beating up the Pursuer, I hitch a ride from the Hawk Taxi to make it to the Lost Bastille, where I meet up with Macduff, who sells the good old Winged Spear. The Winged Spear, to a T, is the exact same as the Winged Spear from Dark Souls 1. While at Macduff's buff house, I beef my spears up to +6 and get Pate's spear to +1 thanks to the metal chests in the house. I then kill another Pursuer for some more Twinkling Titanites, head back to the Shaded Woods to stock up on some Gold Pine Resin, and take on the Ruined Sentinels, where I use the Gold Pine Resin and the Winged Spear to make quick work of the first Sentinel, but ran into a bit of an issue with the second Sentinel falling off the edge a bit too soon, forcing me off the ledge to avoid dealing with two Sentinels up there. Once down at the bottom, I made sure to focus on the Elisa Sentinel since it was already weakened, and with the third Sentinel throwing its shield early on, it made it easy to spot Elisa to take her out. With only one Sentinel left, I used my Gold Pine Resin to speed up the fight, and as you can see with how fast I can poke with the spear, I can do some really good damage, making this fight an easy first try. With the Sentinels taken care of, I get my ADP to 20 to help with iframes and Dex to 27 for me to finally be able to use Pate's spear, which, when using, I got to see the spear's really cool back attack. I'm not gonna lie, FromSoft needs to bring back the unique backstabs. It's super nice to see. Once done backstabbing, I run over to No Man's Wharf to grab the Fragrant Branch of Yore and the Royal Soldier's Ring, which I will need for later. While in No Man's Wharf, I took on the Flexile Sentry, which was made easy thanks to Pate's spear having very good range. The only time things got a bit scary was when I was being overconfident and hanging out by the conjoined twins' junk, but I'm not the smartest cookie, so I went right back into their junk to finish them off. If you don't die, it can't be a bad strategy, right? I then use the Flexile Sentry Souls to get my strength to 21, kill another Pursuer for some more Twinkling Titanite to get Pate's spear to +2, and then head back to the Bastille to get the key, free Boss Weapon Man from his stone slumber, dart off to Center Rise to use the Bastille key to open the cell door with the Hide Knight inside, and upon killing this said knight, I will earn the Hide Spear. The Hide Spear is like any other spear, it just has thrusting attacks, but the spear is imbued with lightning so you can vibrate your enemies to death. Being a bit low on Titanite Shards, I do a bit of forbidden farming to get some, so that I can get my new spear to +6, which means it's ready for the Belfray Gargoyles. Now, I would like to say how amazing the spear was with its lightning damage, that I just bullied the army of gargoyles, but the reality is I face tanked the shit out of them, while spamming life gems to survive, and with me being well stocked at the time, I was able to out-heal them, allowing me to beat them on the first try. Gotta love OP life gems. With having the Gargoyle Soul, I can trade it in for the most disappointing spear weapon in the game, the Gargoyle Bident. The Gargoyle Bident has decent range and all, and has some pretty high strength scaling too, but besides that, it's just a normal spear. You would think it being a boss weapon, it would do something unique, but nope, it got the Moonlight Horn treatment. With that said, I use the Gargoyle Soul to get my strength to 25, kill a dragon for a petrified dragon bone, which I will not be using on the Bident, and take on Dark Ornstein. The game becomes became who can be the better spear wielder, and Ornstein played a bit dirty with using some horizontal attacks instead of the right way, which is by solely just poking your enemy to death. So due to that, I revoked his spear license and his life, earning me his soul, which I cannot use yet because you need the boss bird lady to trade it into. But on the bright side, I found out I could power stance spears now. The downside is it does nothing new. You just poke forward the whole time with the benefit of doing a bit more damage. After playing around for a bit, I talked to the cat to buy the silver cat ring so that I can hop on down a hole to double poke a rat to death. Sadly, being in the spear business doesn't pay well, and you have to do some pest control every now and then to pay the bills. Quick tip for those struggling with the exploding mummy guys, just run towards them and hit them real quick. They are very fragile and die most of the time in one hit. A lot easier than dealing with their bullshit AoE attack. Once done with the mummies, I make it to the gutter where I pick up another fragrant branch of yore, which I use on a stone lion that I need to kill for the Fang key that will let me rescue Ornifix. But before I can trade with Ornifix, I need to kill a few bosses first. Like Notchka, where I got to see how busted the damage can be when power stancing with the two spears. I can only imagine how much damage I could do if I had more endurance to use. Then, right after Notchka, I needed to kill the Congregation and Prowling Mages, where I had the lovely idea to use the Gargoyle Bite It one more time to see if I was wrong about it. Nope, I was right. It was a pretty bad weapon. It constantly was struggling to kill the damn healers, and if I was using any of the other spears right now, this fight would have been over with already. But either way, I persevere through to finally take them all out, so that I can make it to Ornifix to buy the Partisan and trade Ornstein's soul for the Dragon Slayer spear. The Partisan is the exact same as the spear, but has an S-scaling dex, but has a lore-based damage. The Dragon Slayer spear is the same from Dark Souls 1, but it's improved with this lightning projectile attack by its range being increased and doing more damage, which is why I saved my Petrified Dragon Bone to upgrade it to +1. I then used the extra souls I had accumulated along the way to start working on increasing my fate stats to be able to use the Dragon Slayer spear, but with being a few points short, I took on the Rotten. I went in dual wielding the Partisan and the Wing spear. Could I have just used the Partisan? Yeah, but with it just being a spear with different scaling, I didn't see a need to show it off in its solo capabilities, and as you can clearly see, is doing very well being teamed up with the Wing spear to just annihilate the Rotten's health bar, earning me over 50,000 souls, and on top of that, I got a petrified something, which I can trade with Dinah and Tilo to try and get a Chandler's Trident. Sadly, instead, I got a Petrified Dragon Bone. Once done gambling, I get my faith to 14 so that I can finally use the Dragon Slayer spear, and who better to test it out on than the Little Rat Dogs. The first round didn't go so well, but on round 2, I had a much better luck sniping the dogs, leaving the oversized Rotten Mutt to deal with, and when he doesn't have his pups to back him up, he's not much of a challenge. Realizing at this point that the Hide Spear can't be buffed with resin, I got the Token of Fidelity so that I can join the Blue Sentinels, giving me access to buying Bolt Stones, meaning I can infuse one with my Hide Spear to increase its lightning damage, which had me ecstatic to try it out on the Skeleton Lords. I decided to be a bit ballsy this time and take out both of the Lords that summon mini skeleton armies, and you know what? I don't regret it, because the dual-wielding semi-lightning spears did a great job of poking them at bay. Well, we can overlook the fact that I face take most of it, but it was still fun nonetheless. After the army was taken care of, it wasn't hard to finish off the mage and the skeleton wheels after that. With the Skeleton Lords taken care of, I get access to Harvest Valley, where I pick up a poison gem for later, and poke a covetous demon to death, granting me access to Earthen Peaks where I can get the pike. The pike has the same moves as the Pate Spear, but has a bit more reach than it. Before moving forward, I visit Macduff to get my pike to +6, which has me buffed up and ready for Mytha, so my game plan for Mytha is to get behind her and poke that thick scaly booty of hers. Oh, I poked too hard and her tail came off. Wait, her tail can be dismembered? I had no clue that was even possible. What's great about this though is that now her tail attacks are no more threatening, which is usually the scariest part while being behind her. So without her tail from stopping me, I was able to poke her until she couldn't be poked no more. After the fight, I upgraded my Pate Spear to +3, leveled my Faith to 20, and start leveling my Intelligence. With that done, I took on the Smelter Demon, whom I expected to be a walk in the park with dual wielding the Hide Spear along with the Winged Spear, but I underestimated my ability to drop the ball. So I went back into the fray and did the exact same thing again and almost died. The key word words there were almost died. I was able to beat my head against the wall and went with my running around in a circle method. As stated earlier, if you don't die, it can't be a bad strategy. That white lie aside, I went for the old Iron King and decided to use the Dragon Slayer Spear. It does some good damage with how beefy it is, and I could shoot the king from a distance with a lightning bolt, making this a very chill fight. After the fights, I got another petrified something, and I got the white ring, which just makes the user look like a phantom. I don't know how I feel about all this gambling. After that disappointment, I leveled my intelligence to 15, head to Sinner's Rise to take out my frustration on the local guards and take on their prisoner, the Lost Sinner. For the Lost Sinner, I went with the lightning dual-wielding pair of Hyde Spear and the Dragon Slayer. At first, the fight seemed like it was going to be harder than I anticipated. The Lost Sinner kept dodging every attack, making me think I should go back to just two-handing the spears, but I finally found out if I just run around her slash attacks, I could get behind her for a double poke. On top of that, I could run under her jump attacks and then double back to her to get some hits in, allowing me to recover from the first half blunders to get the win. With all those souls, I decided to buy all the bright bugs from the old hag. Very important to stock up on them for the DLC. After stocking up on bugs, it was time to get the last Lord Soul, meaning I bait out Freya's beam attack and poke her other head. At this point, I don't know how else to fight her because this is just too efficient of a method not to use. With Freya dead, Aldia says hi, as he always does, and I ignore him to go buy some more bugs. I then head to Drainlit Castle where I should have farmed the stone soldiers for their spear, but I forgot about it at the time. I will get it, it will just be a minute. But I did get the Faram set to make me look even more fitting of the name Diermid. The Faram set is a bit heavy, so this is where the Royal Soldier's Ring comes into play, allowing me to keep my medium roll, which works out perfect for taking on the two Dragon Riders, because if I wouldn't have had that medium roll, I definitely would have died with the amount of times I got hit. The damn blue Dragon Rider was having his hero arc moment where he went full Goku on my ass like I was Frieza after killing Krillin, but unlike Goku, the blue Dragon Rider doesn't have plot armor, nor does his brother. After slaughtering the future heroes of Drainlit Castle, I started increasing my vitality to help out with my weight management. Also at this time, I said fuck the gambling birds and just gave myself the Trident. I have more important things to do than to gamble my days away. The Chandler's Trident in Dark Souls 2 can actually buff the player, unlike Dark Souls 1. The buff increases the player's damage by 5% for 15 seconds, but at the cost of 11 durability. I will be transparent, it's not really worth it. You can get the buff set up right before a fight, but with how long the animation is, I would not recommend using it during a fight. I actually found it a hindrance most of the time, especially in the Looking Glass Knight fight. I also found out as you cast it, if you get knocked out before the dance finishes, you don't get the buff and you still take the minus 11 to durability. I ended up using the dance twice in this fight, so by the end of it my trident was almost broken, forcing me to switch to another spear to finish the job. I personally will say bright bugs are way better, but it doesn't hurt to have the spear for an occasional buff. With the Looking Glass Knight no more, I decided it was time to start grinding for Titanite chunks in the Black Gulch and start farming for Twinkling Titanite in the Shrine of Amana, so that I could get all my weapons fully upgraded. I then head to the Old Iron King DLC where I can pick up the Pilgrim Spontoon. The Pilgrim Spontoon is a unique spear since it scales with intelligence and faith, and it can cast spells with its heavy attacks. Downside is it costs 30 in nits and faith, so it'll be a minute before I use it, as you can see by my 18 intelligence and my 20 in faith. So to fix that, it's time to slaughter some bosses, where I use chemical warfare to poison the Demon of Song to kill it. I then appreciate again how cool the spear backstab is, talk to Aldia about how Fextra Life needs to get their shit together on their wikis, especially the Neo 2 one. That damn thing wasn't even finished. Once done talking to Aldia, I farm Grave Wardens, which have a 2% chance to drop a Silverback Spear. The Silverback Spear has the moveset of the spear, but it has innate dark damage, and it can be enchanted, which is kind of nuts since the Hyde Spear couldn't do that with it having innate lightning. So of course I needed to check this out for myself, and who better to try it out on than Velstadt. Normally I wouldn't use a dark weapon on Velstadt since he has a high resistance to it, but with it being able to be buffed by resin, I can make it have lightning damage. Combine this with power stancing the Hyde Spear and you got yourself a very strong combo. That no matter what Velstadt tried to do, he just could not stop me from beating him. After the fights, I get my intelligence to 25, do a bit more backstabbing appreciation, and take on a dragon with a Dragon Slayer Spear. Well, alrighty then. I don't think the devs anticipated someone killing the dragon while he was on the wall. Either way, I get the Guardian Dragon Soul to trade into Ornifex to get this Spitfire Spear. The Spitfire Spear is a fire-based weapon that has the unique ability to shoot out fire. I really like this design. It's like you actually crafted the weapon out of the dragon's lungs or fire glands to shoot out the fire. From here, I go back to Aldia's Keep to farm dragon acolytes for petrified dragon bones so that I can get all my boss weapons up to +5. Having my Spitfire Spear ready for the Executioner Chariot, where I use the Channeler's Trident to buff myself to see how much damage Spitfire would do, and it seemed good at first until I realized that was only because I was up close. My only guess is that the Spitfire attack and the spear hitting at the same time is what is causing the big damage, whereas from a distance the fireball attack doesn't do much damage. This can be useful depending on the situation, but it's much faster just to press R1 to get multiple hits off than to wait for the fire attack to come out. I still like the idea of the weapon, but not as good as the Dragon Slayer, sadly. Once done with the Undead Horse, I finally go farm Stone Soldiers, which have about a 5% chance of dropping their spears, but they also have a high chance of dropping Titanite slabs as well. The Stone Spear is the same length as the pike, making it one of the longest weapons in the game, and that's the only thing unique about it, besides that it's a normal ass spear. So I decided to infuse it with poison to help me kill the ancient dragon much quicker. Is this smart? Probably not, but it saves me from poking this dragon for over 10 minutes. After killing the ancient dragon, I get my intelligence to 30 and my faith to 25. I then gather the 3 giant souls from 3 giants and take on the king of giants, who I basically did the same thing as his future self. I just hugged his leg while poking away. After getting the last giant soul, I level my faith to 30, which means I can use the Pilgrim's Spontoon. Now, I did a whole ordeal to be able to get and use Unleash Magic, which is a spell that increases your spell damage. For some reason, I thought it might work with the weapon's special effects, but it dawned on me that those are not spells, so it was just going to reduce my HP by 30%. I did find out it doesn't stack with Brightbug, so that's good to know. So my whole plan changed for the Alana fight to just use Pate's Spear since it has the highest damage so far with Goldpine Resin and Hyde's Spear to deal some decent damage to her. Now, I have been getting comments about how leaving one skeleton alive in the fight doesn't stop Alana from summoning Velstadt. Now, I know it won't stop her from summoning, but I'm very confident it prolongs it, because on every run I leave one skeleton out and she never summons Velstadt, whereas when I kill all the skeletons, she summons Velstadt right away. So I will stick with my placebo effect of leaving one skeleton alive to make this fight easier. Right after beating Alana, I take on Sin since his soul can be traded in for his spear, so I kill him as quickly as possible with the Dragon Slayer and Hyde Spear to get his soul, to trade into Arnifix for the Yorick Spear. The Yorick Spear has the most unique spear moveset in Dark Souls 2. After pressing R1 twice, the user will do a thrust attack into twirling the large spear around, which it can hit opponents multiple times. Its heavy two-handed attack is a spin attack, which also is good for hitting opponents multiple times, and its follow-up heavy attack, the player fancily twirls the large spear around while dealing damage. Hands down, the coolest weapon I have used so far in this run. I tested this weapon out on Vendrick, and I'm pretty sure with one combo I was getting close to doing over 900 damage, especially on its heavy attack. It didn't take too many hits to make Vendrick go down. I then went to check out the 3 Stooges to see how it would do, and I had barely any issues killing the archer. The Dex user didn't even stand a chance, and the Strength user was putting up a good challenge. Until I got a backstab on him and his health bar flew down. All I had to do after that was hit him 2 more times to make him stay down. At this point, I was enjoying the weapon so much, I just stuck with it for every boss from this point on. The only fights I had another spear with me on was for the Blue Smelter Demon, where I used the Poison Stone Spear to Poison Smelter Demon, but actually found it quicker to just use Yorick Spear to damage him because the poison never lasted that long. Just like the fight didn't last that long with me using the Yorick Spear. The only 2 fights that I ended up dying while using the spear were Fume Knights and the Ivory King. For Fume Knights, I just got greedy near the end. Instead of being patient and waiting for a safe time to attack, I thought I could DPS him real quick and he ended up comboing me to death. So in the second round, I played much more carefully, allowing for an easy second try. For the Ivory King, I made the bad call of killing all the knights too quickly, which summoned the Ivory King while one of the portals was still open. So with me being distracted by the extra portal and my Halberd Knight dying in the process, it was just a recipe for disaster. So on round 2, when there was only one knight left, I backed off so that he wouldn't die too quickly, giving one of my knights time to finally go seal the portal, so that when the Ivory King came out, I could give him my full undivided attention. And he was not ready for me to deal over 1200 damage with my spinning heavy attack, putting him just inches away from death. So I went for another heavy attack, which just barely didn't kill him, putting me in a tight spot, but being the Giga Chad Dex player cosplaying as a whirlwind barbarian from Diablo, nothing was going to stop me from winning. Besides these two fights, nothing put up much of a challenge. Sir alone went down with no issues, especially after my last run where I no-hit him. I had all of his attacks dialed in. Ava, of course, wasn't hard, but I did notice I did more damage from hitting her from behind than I did from the side, and I'm assuming that's due to the spear because I'm pretty sure no other weapon could do the extra damage from the back, which came in very handy when taking on Lud and Zalin to help me kill Lud quicker and to make Zalin my bitch. The poor cat didn't even get a chance to get his buff off. With all that just leaves the last 3 bosses, so I level up for the last time to 183 and just wipe the board with the twins, Nasandra, and Aldia, bringing the Dark Souls 2 portion of this run to an oh god Dark Lurker. No worries, I went back and got him, and he actually put up a good fight, but with having a weapon that can double hit while spinning in a circle, he ended up dying very quickly when I hit him and his clone with a heavy attack. Now I can say, this brings the Dark Souls 2 portion of this run to an end. Total run time was 18 hours and 51 minutes. With a total death count of only 26, that's really good for a Dark Souls 2 run. With that said, let's get into the rankings. Coming in 3rd place is the Dragon Slayer Spear. The spear was greatly improved from DS1 with its ranged damage abilities, but sadly it's still held back by it being stuck to lightning. Coming in 2nd place is Pate's Spear. With its long range and high raw damage with the ability to be enhanced through resonance or magic weapon, it just makes it a powerhouse, but not enough to top the true strongman of the spears. Coming in 1st place, and shocker to no one, is the Yorg Spear. I don't even need to explain why this weapon goes into 1st place. Y'all already know the reasons. It's just funny to me that another Oonga Boonga weapon takes the 1st place out of the weapon classes that is usually associated with Dex. Either way, with the rankings done with, let's get into Dark Souls 3. Starting off with the class, I went with the Herald because it actually has a spear for a starting weapon. I then named my character after one of the strongest lance users from Fate's Stay Night, Kuwanger. And with him being a lance servant class, I am summoned by the Firekeeper to compete once again for the Holy Grail. But first, let's talk about the spear. The spear returns once again, and it plays the exact same as Dark Souls 1. But this time it has the weapon art Shield Splitter, which just deals damage to people while they're blocking with the shield. Feeling a bit rusty from not being summoned in about 60 years, I took on the Crystal Crocodile to loosen up the spear arm. I know one particular Souls tuber who will not be too happy about that, but I need the Tie Knight scale. With that done, I poke Gundyr to death. Don't worry, dear viewer, he does get his revenge on me later. I then meet up with my lovely mage, aka the Firekeeper, to level my dex to 17, hunt down a crystal lizard for some twinkling Tynite, pick up an Estus shard, and grab the covetous silver serpent ring. I then teleport on over to High Wall of Lothric, make sure to get the gold pine resin for Vort, pick up some Tynite shards, and the undead hunter's charms. Go back to Firelink Shrine to upgrade my spear, find a rogue mage without her servant and kill her for me to take on Vort. So I thought this was going to be the usual easy first try fight that it normally is, but for some reason when he went into his second phase after knocking me down with his charge attack, he didn't do his Ice Breath attack, leaving room for him to give me an early Christmas gift. No clue why he didn't do the Ice Breath attack, but on round 2 he did do the Ice Breath attack even after knocking me down, so I was able to get the head break to kill the frozen turd. With now having access to the bonfire, I can farm the Lothric Spear Knight for his spear that has a 4% chance of dropping. The Lothric Knight's long spear is just a stronger version of the spear with longer range, having the unique perk of increasing poise by 15 and having the weapon art charge, which has the player charge forward. The name definitely didn't give that one away. I then meet up with an old mage who helps me out with some forbidden magic to get my dex to 25. Once done with the old mage, I go to Undead Settlement to get charcoal pine resin, a sharp gem off a crystal lizard, the mortician ashes for alluring skulls and human pine resin, get the fire clutch ring to use much later on in the run, and farm the peasants for the 4-pronged plow, which has a 4% chance to drop. Also nearby is a hanging dead body that contains the partisan. The 4-pronged plow is the same as the one from Dark Souls 1, except to make yourself fall over, you need to extend the charge weapon art by using the heavy attack afterwards. Very useful for fighting dragons from what I heard. The partisan makes its return once more and has the same moveset as the Dark Souls 1 version, making it good for crowd control. It also has the weapon art spin sweep, which has the user do a short whirlwind attack. Back at Firelink Shrine, I get my plow to +1 and join the other local farmers at the bonfire ceremony. The fight was pretty straightforward, light my pitchfork on fire and poke away, but I did have some trouble with some of the higher up zits hitting them. I ended up having to bait out the tree's body slam attack so that I could pop some of its other zits. The main reason for killing the cursed rod of Greatwood is for the transposing kin, but also for its soul. I can use its soul to trade in for the Arster's Spear. The Arster's Spear is a pretty short range spear that can inflict poison on enemies you hit, but the most unique thing about it is that when you kill an enemy, you will receive 30 HP back. Sadly, the weapon art isn't anything special, just the same old shield splitter art. I then used the Titanite scales I got earlier to get the Asher Spear to +1. While adventuring, I got caught up in a fight with a demon and a local onion knight came to save the day. Nothing like some jolly cooperation, as they say. As tradition goes on this channel, we sit down and toast with Onion Bro. Saloncha everyone, I hope your day is going well. Of course, after that, I get the Flynn's Ring and the Chloranthy Ring. With those rings acquired, I make it to the Road of Sacrifice, where I get the Grass Crest Shield for some increased stamina regain, and farm the tree lovers here for the pike that has a 1% chance to drop. The pike is a pike, it has the same old long range and moveset as it always does, and if you couldn't guess, it has the charge weapon art. Needing some more Tinites, I pick up the Dream Chaser's Ashes and kill the 2 crystal lizards nearby to get the large Tinite Shards, which I use those Tinite Shards to upgrade my weapons and use the 2 large shards I got on the Lothric Knight long spear. I then put another crystal crocodile to sleep, not killed, but put to sleep. No one can be mad about that. After loopholing my way around that situation, I get the Farron Coal, which I can use to make my Lothric Spear have an A scaling and dex for a bit more damage. I then farmed the Gru for the Rod and Gru Spear that has a 2% chance to drop. The Gru Spear is pretty much the Ashtora's Spear, with it being able to poison enemies. The upside to the spear is that it has longer range, downside it just doesn't have unique weapon art. After getting the spear, I was ready for the Crystal Sage with the Lothric Knight long spear, which again, you would think this would be a no-brainer first try, but I forgot that the attack animations for spears in Dark Souls 3 are a bit slower than the ones from Dark Souls 2, and coming right off the bat from that game, I was a bit too cocky and got myself killed. Learning my lesson, I can't just spam my way to victory, I just applied fire to my weapon so that I can spam my way to victory. The solution to all solutions, just buff your weapon and ignore logic. With the Crystal Sage out of the picture, I make sure to get the Paladin's Ashes so that I can buy the Lord's Shield Ring. While on my travels, I came across Santa Claus who said I was a good boy this year and that I could touch his cock. After that white Christmas, I ended up in the painted world of Ariandel, but before continuing on, I went back to the shrine to use my 11,000 souls to level up my strength, and good thing I did because I died shortly after that. The reason from coming here is to get the Follower's Javelin. The Follower's Javelin is a strength-based spear that might have short range due to its size, but its weapon art, Hurl Spear, will allow me to throw this short fella at anyone getting in my way, making up for size with adaptability. Ain't that right, ladies and gents? I then tried to put another crystal crocodile to sleep, but this one was not ready for a nap time and made me take a nap instead. I know a particular someone who is very happy right now. Too bad that smile will be short-lived because I got him in the second round. Once done with the crystal crocodile, I get the Lloyd Sword Ring, kill 2 giants for some large Tinite Shards, and pick up the Saint Bident. The Saint Bident is a spear that majority scales from Faith. It has a greater range than the pike and has been a valuable weapon for me in my Faith-only runs in Dark Souls 3. I only have good things to say about this weapon. With that said, I will not be using it just yet, but instead I'll be upgrading the Partisan for it to take on the Deacons of the Deep. The reason for using the Partisan is for its heavy attack, which is a horizontal swing which makes taking out the army of deacons a breeze. I did find out that the alluring skulls on the deacons does not last that long, and I actually had to use 3 of them this time to keep them distracted so that I can kill the head deacon. I guess the alluring skull strat isn't as broken as I thought. I then used the deacon souls to get my strength to 26 in preparation for the javelin. I then stock up on some gold pine resin and take on the first mage servant of this holy grail war, the Abyss Watchers, class assassin. At the start of the fights, I forgot to equip the resin, so I had to do some quick menuing to get it on before I could get hit. For this fight, I went with the pike. I figured with its long range, it would help getting hits in while staying at a safe distance. The crazy thing is how good the pike was at stunning the Abyss Watchers. Not just in phase 1 either, in both phases I had no issue stunning them. Now, it didn't mean I didn't have some close calls every now and then, but it did make fighting them easier than usual. With the assassin class dealt with, I leveled my strength to 29, head into the catacombs to get a sharp gem, and take on Wolnir with the Gru Spear. For these runs, I try to use every weapon on a boss, and with there being 21 weapons and only 25 bosses, my options were limited, so I had to sacrifice a spear to use on Wolnir. So sorry Gru lovers, but this will be the last time you see the spear. After taking out Wolnir, I go to Smoldering Lake and watch Worm Solaire die for the millionth time. I then use all the souls to get my faith to 16, strength to 30, and endurance to 10. Before I forget, like I did in my last run, I go fight the old Demon King. I ended up going with the Astoris Spear for its poison buildup. I chose this spear over Gru because the Astoris Spear had a higher attack power. So the old Demon King is susceptible to poison, but for the life of me, I could not get him poisoned, which means he must have a pretty high resistance to it. So good thing I went with the spear that had the higher damage because I had to rely on it to kill him. While being in Smoldering Lake, I did the normal large Titanite gathering, which I used those shards to get my javelin to +5. I then went to get a heavy gem at Farron Keep so that I can infuse it with my javelin to increase its damage with higher strength scaling. Meaning it's time to take on the rogue servant, the Dancer, class Saber. So the plan for Dancer was to use human resin to deal dark damage in phase 1 and then switch to the javelin throws in phase 2 to attack from a safe distance. While doing the javelin throws, I decided to test out if the dark damage would be applied to the throws as well, and sadly it does not. I figured with keeping distance while throwing the javelin, I was 100% going to get the first try, but my hubris got me again. I was trying to rush to the finish line throwing a javelin not at a safe time, allowing me to get 2 shots in the process. The worst part is I died to the exact same attack on my second attempt, making me use up all my human resin. So in the 3rd round, I tried using Carthus Rouge instead to see if I could get a bleed proc, but sadly that never happened. Either way, I made it to the 2nd phase, where this time I played extra careful and made sure to only use my weapon art when I was safe, putting Dancer at critical health, allowing me to finish her off with a well-timed poke. After the fights, I get my faith to 20 and then gather the Titanite chunks in the Consume King Garden in Lautric's castle, where at the castle I could get the Great Lance. The Great Lance is the longest spear weapon in the game and has the unique heavy attack that allows a player to charge forward without using the weapon art charge. But it still has the weapon art charge. Personally, I think they should have had a poise increase art instead, but that's just me. After getting the Great Lance, I head to Ithral the Boral Valley to acquire a good amount of spears. But first, I have a Pontiff I need to take care of, so I figured I would just parry Pontiff to death. What I didn't take into account was how different the parry timing windows was from the small shield to a medium shield. Well, definitely learned that lesson the hard way. On round 2, it was a bit better with the parry timings, but I did keep messing up every now and then. So the reason for using the Bident here was because I don't have too many options left, and I've used this spear multiple times now in my other videos, and figured it'd be better off for a quick fight like this one. But if you would like to see the Bident in action, I have a Trilogy Faith Only run and my DS3 Faith Only run where I display how good of a weapon it can be. With Pontiff parried to death, I can now collect a crap ton of spears, and the first one on the list is the Durang Twin Spear, which I can get from killing the Durang Knights right after Pontiff's boss room. The Durang Twin Spear is a normal spear when single-handing it, but when two-handing it, you can dual wield 2 spears, allowing you to continuously attack with both spears for massive damage. The only downside is that they give it the charge weapon arts when it should have had the spin sweep for a double whirlwind attack, but hey, what do I know? After the Deranged Twin Spear, I go to the top of Ponta's boss room and use an Undead Hunter's Charm on a Mimic chest to get the Golden Ritual Spear. The Golden Ritual Spear is a spear that focuses on dealing magic damage, but scales with faith, interestingly enough. The spear can also be used as a catalyst to cast spells, and its weapon art Steady Chant boosts spell damage by 10%. This is exactly what the Moonlight Butterfly Horn should have been. Glad to see FromSoft learn from their previous mistakes. After the Golden Ritual, I take a quick detour to get the Eastern Ashes to be able to buy large Titanite shards. Right after that, I go back to Firelink Shrine to summon Patches, and funny enough, you can actually see the door close itself when going up the elevator. With Patches summoned, I could buy the good old Wing Spear, and shocker to no one, it's the same old Wing Spear. Nothing new to it besides the weapon art charge. FromSoft sure had fun copying and pasting that weapon art. After getting the Wing Spear, I get Yorshka's Spear in the rafters in the Yorshka Church. The Yorshka Spear shares the same moveset as the Parson, but differs with its weapon art, Pacify. Pacify buffs the weapon, but at the cost of draining your FP per hit, and lasts for about 45 seconds. After the Yorshka Spear, I go into the dungeons to farm Jailers for the Soldering Iron, which has a 2% chance to drop, and while here, I farm the weird-tated, mutated baby things for the Tailbone Spear that has a 1% chance of dropping. The Soldering Iron is a spear that deals fire and physical damage and is meant for being used in PvP to decrease the other player's Estus healing. Besides that, it's a pretty shit PvE weapon. The Tailbone Spear looks like it would just be a normal spear weapon, but its weapon art Unleashed Dragon allows you to do a similar wind attack as the Nameless King, which is super cool. Once done in the Sex Dungeon, I hunt down a Gargoyle for the Gargoyle Flame Spear, which has a 10% chance of dropping. The funny thing while farming is that one of the gargoyles got himself stuck, so we had a oh no stepbro moment happening right there. The Gargoyle Flame Spear is a spear that deals fire and physical damage with low scaling and faith and intelligence to help increase that fire damage. The real unique thing about the spear is its weapon art Kindle Charge. When extending the charge attack with the heavy attack, it will launch the player in the air and slam it back down with an explosion. A bit surprised they didn't do something similar like this with the Poison Spears, but hey, it is what it is. Alright, finally done collecting spears for now, but I made sure to do a big upgrading spree on all of them. With that done, I take on the third servant, Yorm the Giant. Class Berserker. So for Yorm, I went with a Soldering Iron because I honestly don't see it doing well in any other fights, but it ended up doing so poorly in this fight with breaking Yorm's hand, I had to bring in backup with the Javelin to break his head, and the damage from the Soldering Iron was not too great. So to speed things up, I just used the Deranged Twin Spear to kill Yorm, which still took around 7 minutes to do. With Yorm out of the picture, I level my intelligence to 11, upgrade my Gargoyle Flame Spear to +4, and not use it, but instead use Yorshka's Spear for the fourth servant, Aldrich, Devourer of Gods, class Caster. And once again, he opens with the purple balls. What is going on with his AI lately? Purple balls aside, I went with Yorshka's Spear here because I feared the weapon buff would help out speeding up this fight, which it sure did. The only downside during this fight was getting bad RNG with the amount of times he wanted to do his arrow attack, and near the end where he did kill me but caught me off guard because I was confident I dodged the attack. Usually when he slams his staff down, that's when you would get hit by the AoE, which I thought I dodged, but as I was walking away after the hit, I died. I'm not too sure how that happened in all honesty, but either way, Aldrich's RNG wasn't so good for him during round 2. With Aldrich defeated, I finally used my Sharp Gem on the Deranged Twin Spears, which I had gotten to +9 with all the chunks I got earlier, which had me ready for Osiris, who was a walk in the park with the Deranged Twin Spears, Gold Pine Resin, and using Pontiff's Right Eye. The Twin Spears almost feel similar to the Sellsword Twin Blades with how fast you can get hits off, which for those who do not know, the Sellsword Twin Blades are probably the most busted weapon in Dark Souls 3, and the Twin Spears don't feel too far behind it. Osiris can vouch on my behalf for that. After that easy win, I get the Path of the Dragon so that I can meditate on over to Archdragon Peak so that I could use the Golden Ritual Spear to kill a dragon. As cool as the magic casting spear can be, I don't want to abuse being overpowered with magic range damage in this run. With the dragon dead, I get the Dragon Chaser's Ashes and do the Havel Mating Dance to lure him away from the Titanite slab. I then use the ashes to do a massive upgrading to all my spear collection, and with that, I was ready to take on Champion Gundyr. For this fight, I went with the Tailbone Spear, thinking its weapon art would be great for this fight. That was not the case. It did really good damage, but it has too long of a wind-up time for Gundyr. Every time I tried getting it off, I would get hit in the process. So after my 4th attempt, I had to make the hard call of not using it anymore so that I could get the win. I really enjoyed the weapon art, but Gundyr was a bad call to use it on. After beating Gundyr, I get my dex to 35 and take on one of my favorite favorite fights in the game, besides for the butterflies, Dragon Slayer armor. For Dragon Slayer, I went with the Gargoyle Flaming Spear since Dragon Slayer is weak to fire. In the first round, I forgot to put on the Fire Clutch ring to increase my fire damage, so I ended up doing less damage than I would have liked, and in that process, I didn't stagger Dragon Slayer fast enough, leaving room for me to get one shot. Sadly, round 2 wasn't any better with the ring since it can't fix skill issue. But on the third attempt, finally the beautiful combo of the Fire Clutch ring, Flynn ring, Lloyd Sword ring, and not locking on could flourish. My only regret was getting caught up so much in winning the fight that I didn't use the weapon art to finish the job. It would have been a really cool finish with a fiery explosion. But after beating Dragon Slayer armor, I realized I really didn't need the intelligent points anymore, so I reallocated those points into my health so that I can no longer be one-shot. Once done reallocating, I get the 2 Titanite slabs of the Grand Archive for me to not use them and go fight the Nameless King. I decided for this fight to go with the Great Lance, figuring it would do really good poise damage to the King. Funny thing is, apparently this weapon got shit on pretty hard on launch, and it took a good amount of updates to get it okay from what the internet says, but I had no issues using it. I was able to deal good damage to the chicken to kill it with minimum issues, and when fighting the king, I did not find that it was overly slow. I had plenty of time to get 2 hits off and roll away. Now, it didn't do as much poise damage as I thought it would do, but I was still able to poise break the king near the end of the fight, and I was able to finish him off with the spear's unique heavy attack. The Great Lance might be considered bad to most, but it's definitely better than people think. After beating the Nameless King, I get access to the new area that has a Titanite slab, which I had no clue that was here, but more importantly, you can get the Dragon Slayer Spear in this area, and speaking of dragon slaying, I could trade in the Nameless King's soul for the Dragon Slayer Sword Spear. The Dragon Slayer Spear is the same for the most part from the other games, but the difference is that its weapon art now has a running charge to it before it can launch itself, which to me personally is a bit of a downgrade. I would rather have it just do like the other games and just shoot the lightning bolt out right away. The Dragon Slayer Sword Spear is unique in the sense when using it single-handedly, the light attacks are thrust attacks and the heavy attacks are swing attacks, whereas when you're two-handing the weapon, the light attack becomes an overhead slam attack and the heavy attack becomes a strong thrusting attack. On top of all that, when using its weapon art Falling Bolt, it will make a lightning fall out of the sky while buffing your weapon with lightning. A super cool boss weapon if I don't say so myself. I then upgraded both weapons and decided to use one of my slabs on the Dragon Slayer Spear because up next is the 5th servant, the Twin Princes, class Rider. Surprisingly, I did not die during this fight, which threw me off because I usually do die a good amount of times to them. This time I was able to survive the opening teleport attack to get into a good rhythm with the elder brother to deal good damage with the spear thanks to it doing innate lightning damage, making the first phase go by quickly, and for the second phase I decided to stay behind the brother so that I can hit both of them at the same time. And when the elder brother finally goes down, I could use the lightning charge on them up close so that I could get the max damage out of lightning since lightning attacks deal higher damage when you're closer. And after 2 lightning charges, the younger brother was almost dead, so I just need to do a few more pokes to get the first try. And funny enough, I killed them as they were teleporting away, which had me very confused to try and find out where they went. With the 5th servant taken care of, I can now use their souls to access the 6th and final servant fight. But instead of doing that, I can actually access the Dredge Heap from the Soulless Sinner's bonfire. I had no clue you can get here this way. Here in the Dredge, I can get the second to last spear, the Lotric War Banner. The Lotric War Banner is like the other spears, but its weapon art, Lotric War Banner, buffs the player, increasing their damage by 15% for 2 minutes. So at this point, I get my War Banner upgraded to +9 and use one of my other slabs on the Dragon Slayer Sword Spear. Before taking on the Demon Prince, I make sure to get the Ring of Favor for some extra HP and stamina boosts. Speaking of the Demon Prince, I actually decided to go with the Winged Spear that I had sharpened for this fight. I chose to do this over the War Banner because I knew the Winged Spear would do more damage overall with it being a bit faster than the banner, which I was right with how I no-hit the first phase. The second phase was a bit tougher, but I got lucky at any time the Prince would try and fly away, he was next to a wall, so it made it super easy to get long combos off on him to get the easy first try. With the Demon Prince taken care of, I used my baby banner to summon some friendly Canadians to help me out and bring me to the Ring City, where I can get the Ring Knight Spear. The Ring Knight Spear has the partisan moveset, but its weapon art, Ember, ignites the spear, allowing the user to do fire damage, but on top of that, when doing heavy swings, your range of attacks get extended and looks fucking badass. So I get the spear to +4 and then decide to use one of my last slabs on the twin spears for later. With that said, it's time to put this fiery spear to work, and there's no better boss to use it on than Gravetinder. So of course, I ignited the weapon before starting the fight so that I could kill the wolves super quick, and when it's just Gravetinder, I could use the heavy attack to get damage in while breaking his stance. I noticed here that spears are really good at dealing with human types because with their range, you can keep most humans at bay, which makes it easier to kill them. Now, for the giant wolf, it got a bit spicy with his dash attacks, but with using a weapon that focuses on fire damage, I had no issues putting this giant mutt down. After the fights, I leveled myself up to 87, grabbed the Chloranthy Ring +3 for some faster stamina recovery, and take on Medley, who I had no issues with using the Dragon Slayer sword spear. All I had to do was two-hand light attack to get easy overhead shots on Medley's head, which made getting staggers easy, and of course I had to finish the fight off with a falling bolt. You could only imagine how fast this fight would have been if I was using a pitchfork. Up next on the boss rush is Half-Light, and as stated earlier, spears make humans a walk in the park, and that includes Half-Light as well. The dude never got a chance to get a hit in because I could poke him out of the way. I highly recommend if you're struggling with him to just use the spear and makes this fight a joke. With Half-Light done, that means it's time for Gale, and once again I went with the Dragon Slayer sword spear. I was just having too much fun using it not to keep using it. I had a rough start in phase 1, but I was able to pull it back around in phase 2 with just baiting out his jump attacks. In phase 2, his jump attack leaves him wide open for hits afterwards with no real repercussions. In phase 3, I tried using the falling bolt on him when he does his scream attack, but it seems he's immune during that attack, or the range is very short on falling bolt. Either way, I just played it slow and waited for his double jump attacks to get hits in, but made sure to finish him off in style. Got to get those falling bolt kills, just makes the win feel more epic. With only 2 bosses left, that just leaves Sister Frida, where I went with the War Banner. I figured with this fight being pretty easy with backstabs, I wouldn't have any issues, but I ended up dying to Father in phase 2 because he's a dick. So the strategy for this fight was simple. Use the War Banner buff for extra damage to kill Sister quickly. In phase 2, poison Father and attack whoever is available at the moment to end this phase as fast as possible. And once again for phase 3, I do backstabs, but from time to time I would just poke her as well. I think in my next run I'll ban backstabs because it really does make this fight too easy. Except for phase 2, I hate that phase and it doesn't need to be longer than it already is. Oh wait a minute, hold on. I could have used the 4-pronged plow to plow Sister Frida. Fuck, that's a missed opportunity. Oh well. With Sister defeated, that means I get to level up for the last time, which is to 96, and I get to take on the final servant in this Holy Grail war, the Lord of Cinder, class Avenger. So I thought Cinder was going to be a walk in the park with the twin spears with how fast they are, and they had no issues with dealing with the first phase, but for some reason I kept struggling in phase 2, which is the phase I'm usually better at. So I tried using the Dragon Slayer Spear and Javelin to get range damage in, and the only one that would land most of the time was the Javelin, but it would randomly miss from time to time. Like multiple times, it would just go between Cinder's legs. Like, why FromSoft? Why? Like, I get the arch drop, but I'm not that far from him. So due to that, I ended up dying 3 times. Until finally I said fuck it and just focus on using the twin spears more and using the Javelin occasionally to get the win. Bringing the Dark Souls 3 portion and the entire trilogy run to an end. Total runtime was 16 hours and 43 minutes, with my total death count at 37. Definitely not my best, but overall not bad either. With that said, time for the rankings. Coming in 3rd place, and this one was a hard one for me, is the Follower's Javelin. With it having the ability to hit enemies from far away with not much throw time, and with it being buffable, make it a very versatile weapon. But with how well you need to position sometimes to get the throws off, it holds it back a bit for efficient use. For 2nd place, I went with the Dragon Slayer Sword Spear. It has every option available for you to adapt to a fight. You can do thrust to get human enemies to stay at bay, you can switch to swings if needed to take out groups of enemies, or even do overhead attacks if needed. The only thing keeping it from 1st place is that it's stuck to lightning, and Falling Bolt's range attack isn't that good, which leaves the number 1 spot open to the Durang Twin Spear. I gave these guys 1st place due to how fast you could deal damage to enemies. With being able to double hit most of the time, you could take full advantage of Pontiff's right eye for some serious damage, which just leads to a lot of easy poise breaks, and on top of that, it can be buffed to tackle any enemy's elemental weakness. It took until Dark Souls 3 to dethrone the Oonga Boonga weapons, but it finally happened. With all that said, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, hit that subscribe button. At this time, I would also like to thank my channel supporters. If you too would like to support the channel, or have your name in the video, you can click the Patreon link in the description, or click the YouTube join button. I also from time to time stream my runs, so you can catch me streaming on YouTube or over on Twitch at Gaming. I want to thank you all for watching, and until next time, take care.